All right. Thank you for being with us today. I'm Adrian Messer, U.S. Operations Manager for SDT Ultrasound Solutions, and really appreciate you taking time to attend Rethinking Reliability. And the topic is not necessarily a lot to do about ultrasound technology, which is what we're all about, but it is really centered around really one of the biggest obstacles that we face in our respective plants and factories and facilities where we work, and that's culture. Prior to joining SDT, I spent about a year and a half working with companies to help them find highly qualified maintenance and reliability professionals for their open maintenance and reliability jobs. So, in having conversations with people who are looking for their next opportunity, one would think that the conversation would be centered around pay, benefits, and kind of what's in it for me, so to speak. But very quickly on, in talking with those folks, the conversation seemed to always center around culture. There are people out there who know to do the right things, want to do the right things when it comes to asset management and maintenance and reliability, but they are stuck in a reactive environment and they want to be somewhere where they can drive effective maintenance and reliability change and do things the right way, and in turn have better work-life balance and really feel like they're doing meaningful work. So I'm really excited to be talking about this. And I'm not a change management expert by any means, but this presentation is really a compilation of things that I have picked up in my now 21 years experience and working in maintenance and reliability in this industry, and really hope to just give you some things to think about and some simple things that you can do to start to really change how maintenance and reliability is perceived in your plants and in your places of work. And a lot of it has to do with just the way that we present maintenance and reliability to the decision makers where we are, and how ultimately that can really help to drive and change shareholder value for the better. So just some questions to ask yourself. What is your burning platform? What is it in your plant, in your workplace that can be done better? That work that's done that can be improved, and to do the right things, but you're just kind of really stuck in that kind of reactive rut. So what's your burning platform? What do you want to change? What keeps you up at night? I know internally, what we deal with here, and in kind of being a resource for maintenance and reliability professionals when it comes to ultrasound technology for asset condition monitoring and energy conservation. I kind of have things in my mind. I want to make sure that anybody who has our equipment, that they're the best user of that equipment. So again, I've got things that kind of keep me up at night, so to speak. But what is it in your plant or your factory that you think about that's kind of lurking out there? And when it comes to driving change within your organization, will leadership support reliability? Do they understand how important maintenance and reliability is to what you're doing as far as your work as a maintenance and reliability professional? And we think about everywhere we go, quality is always ingrained into the culture. Safety is always ingrained into the culture. But how do we get maintenance and reliability up to the same level as safety and quality within our culture? Now, several years ago, I was visiting a plant out in Portland, Oregon, and I was in the lobby. I was waiting for my contact to come get me, and while I was waiting, I happened to notice that posted there in the lobby for everyone to see right by the time clock is the reliability and maintenance excellence statement. In this case, it was Portland General Electric. And it's the first time I had ever seen anything like this. We typically will see a company's mission and vision, overall mission and vision, but I had never seen one dedicated solely to maintenance and reliability. And I've got it here. And if you'd like a copy of this presentation, I'll be glad to send you a copy. But now, since I've given this initial presentation, I have received another one. This one actually came from Los Alamos National Labs, and the gentleman was very proud to hand me a copy of their maintenance and reliability statement. And it's about a 4-page document. I'm looking at it right here, but they have defined a purpose, why they exist. They have defined who will benefit from these maintenance and reliability initiatives. They have a clearly defined vision, mission, and then they've defined how they will execute maintenance and reliability work. So I was really, really proud to see that. And again, this gentleman was really proud to share a copy of their maintenance and reliability best practices, and really kind of statement of excellence, if you will. So again, it's about creating awareness, creating buy-in, and one way to do that is just simply to be visible. And I've always said that if there's anything that maintenance and reliability professionals can do better, it's reporting and documentation and showcasing their wins and their finds. So again, in our plants and our organizations, somewhere along the way, quality was decided that, hey, we're going to make the highest quality product. So quality became a part of the culture. We always think about safety. Even myself, when I go into plants and factories, I pay attention to the boards where they're reporting the number of days since a lost time accident. I look for those safety types of awareness and notifications. So safety is very important. We want to make sure that we go home at the end of our shift, make sure that we go home at the end of our day. So of course, safety is going to be a part of the culture. But what can we do to make sure that reliability is as thought of as highly as safety and quality? Because really it drives our work, it drives our productivity, it makes us competitive in the modern industrial landscape and workplace. And again, a lot of it has to do with just simply how we communicate the business of reliability and sell reliability as value instead of just being a cost center. And there's ways that we can do that. Was at a conference just this week and was having lunch with someone. And at this particular conference that I was at, they actually give away awards for culture, culture improvements, culture initiatives. And the gentleman that sat down to have lunch with me, his company had won one of those awards the day before at this conference. And in just hearing him talk, the first kind of step that he took was just simply rephrasing how he was discussing and defining work in his workplace. Prior to him coming there, it was a very reactive workplace where most everything was run to failure. But again, he just simply changed the way he delivered the message of what reliability meant and what reliability could do in his plant and factory, and here he was, just this week winning an award for culture and improvements in culture change within his organization. So, what's important to our shareholders? What's important to leadership? Well, there are metrics that are directly attributed to maintenance and reliability that can really raise the eyebrow and of our leadership and decision makers within our plants and organizations. One of them is OEE. It's a term and a metric that we hear a lot in maintenance and reliability. But basically, high OEE values indicate better asset utilization and improved productivity. One of the examples we'll talk about when we get to the ultrasound portion is, putting the dollar amount to how much our finds are. So if we're going to go out to do a compressed air leak survey, for example, the easiest thing you can do with ultrasound, make sure that we put a dollar amount to how much those air leaks are costing, or those pressurized specialty gases. If you're using helium or nitrogen or argon, one leak could more than pay for the cost of the tool, but we've got to put a dollar amount to it. We've got to show an ROI. We think about mean time between failure, MTBF. Longer mean time between failure values suggest increased reliability and less downtime, again, contributing to higher productivity and reduced maintenance costs. So we think about, how long can we go, or increasing the amount of time between when we have a failure to when that a failure occurs again. So we want to extend that time as long as we can. So we use technologies like ultrasound, vibration analysis, whatever the case may be, whatever failure mode that it is that you're looking for, and what technology will find that failure at its earliest instance. So that way we are more aware of potential problems within our plants and factories. Maintenance costs as a percentage of revenue. So decreasing trend indicates more cost-effective maintenance practices positively impacting profitability. So again, we're looking to make the most out of what we have, the tools that we have, or if we're having repetitive failures, we try to look at the root cause to try to fix that. So a lot of times it may involve a complete design change, or we look at retrofitting the assets that we have that weren't designed for reliability or designed for ease of maintenance, and we look at ways that we can um, eliminate those potential defects from those assets so we get more life out of them. And then we think about asset utilization, which is a percentage of time that an asset is actively producing or contributing. And any improvement in asset utilization is going to improve overall efficiency. Now, I know a lot of times maintenance gets blamed for a lot of equipment downtime, but you also need to look at how we're operating the machines and the assets. A lot of places I go, we're running our equipment faster than it was designed to be ran, or we have excessive number of starts and stops. So meaning, something happens, so like we just go out and we restart it. So what's causing all those starts and stops? But again, any kind of increase in asset utilization is going to be an improvement in overall efficiency and improve production. Now, I mentioned energy efficiency, or we refer to it a lot now. Commonly, you'll hear the term ESG. ESG, that lets shareholders know where the company stands in relation to energy and sustainability. Again, we want to make the most of our resources. I mentioned, how competitive the industrial landscape is right now in the current time that we're in, and I don't see that changing. So we need to be as efficient as possible. So if you're not currently doing anything, again, in relation to compressed air leak detection, I mentioned specialty gases. One great thing that I have seen, a company that has those specialty gases delivered in cylinders from their gas provider. Before they accept in those cylinders, they do a quick scan with ultrasound to check for leaks. So that way they're not accepting in leaky cylinders from their provider. And that has been a game changer for them. Plus, the gas provider has become aware of it. So they've improved some things on their end to the rest of their customers who they also deliver those gases to. Steam is another one. Steam experts will tell you that if it's been longer than 3 to 5 years since you have done a steam trap survey, as many as 50% of your steam traps may be in a failed condition. And to certain industries, that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in wasted energy due to failed steam traps. So it is something to really pay attention to. And it's very, very easy to do. So, in thinking about asset management, we have to first of all think about how we define asset management. And this comes directly from ISO 55000, which is a globally recognized standard for the management of physical assets. So, ISO 55000 defines asset reliability as the probability that an asset will perform without failure within a given period of time under known conditions. And then they move to asset performance, which is the state of asset operation that adds value to the organization. And then asset accountability, which is the responsibility of an organization for asset performance. We haven't heard a whole lot about ISO 55000 lately, but again, we need to have some sort of accountability or some sort of standard to go by when it comes to how we execute asset reliability within our organization. It's no different than currently. We've been having a lot of conversations recently about the latest revision to NFPA 70B, which is a nationally, or in some cases even a globally recognized standard for how we execute the maintenance of energized electrical assets within our facilities. So the latest revision to NFPA 70B, basically everywhere where it previously said recommended, it now says mandatory. So it's kind of raising the eyes of people who are responsible for energized electrical assets within their facilities to where they're really starting to pay attention and change the way that they maintain anything and everything that's energized in their plants and factories and facilities. So again, we want to make sure that we are in compliance, and we want to make sure that we have the correct documentation to where if something happens, again, we have the proper documentation, we're following recognized standards, and it just helps to protect us and the people around our plants and factories. So, how does your company currently view maintenance and reliability? So, I kind of said the comment earlier that maintenance is viewed as a cost center and kind of a necessary evil. And so there it is. Is maintenance perceived as a cost center? Is it a necessary evil? Is maintenance reactive in your plant right now? Is it considered firefighting? Do you hear that term mentioned frequently in your plant or facility? Or is maintenance defined as fix, restore, replace, rebuild, recondition? A lot of you can fill in the blank with however you define it currently in your plant or your facility. And then in a culture of reactivity, you may hear phrases like, it's not my job, or one of my personal favorites, flavor of the month. We have a lot of silos here. I've been in plants and factories. They don't necessarily have to be large either, but there's a lot of times we go in and, the person in the office beside each other, they don't know what they have going on as far as maintenance and reliability initiatives because they don't communicate. So I love it when I hear of companies who have regularly scheduled maintenance reliability teams meetings to where they're sharing information. And there's a lot of value that can be garnered from that, because if you have sister plants, sister companies, it's very likely that they have similar equipment. And if they have similar equipment, it's very likely that they have similar problems and challenges. So it's just a great, simple way of sharing information amongst other facilities. Even I heard, not recently, but I have heard, I'm tired of hitting my head against the wall. We don't have time. That's probably the most common one that I hear, is we don't have time. Well, guess what? Change has to start somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be a significant change in the beginning. Those typically will fail, but there is a thought called the power of marginal gains. And that power of marginal gains actually says that if each day you improve something 1%, it's going to be, within a year, it's going to be 10 times better than it was when you started. And again, it's kind of like compounded interest, but it's called the power of marginal gains. So if you just take something and improve it 1% a day for a year, uh, you're going to be 10 times better off at the end of the year than you were when you started. Or it fell through the cracks. That's another personal favorite that I have heard quite often over the years. So, some other questions to ask yourself and to think about. You think about some of the challenges that you have. Some of the failures that you've had occur. But think about over the last year or so, and how often did preventable failures occur? How much unplanned and unscheduled downtime did you have last year? And then how much of that could have been preventable if a maintenance and reliability technology or tool or process had been utilized? So in a reliability focused culture, moving from reactive maintenance to proactive maintenance, it is a big change, and nobody likes change. Change is hard. And we'll talk about some of the things to think about as you start to um, implement some of these initiatives, whether it be just simply adding in ultrasound to what you're doing as far as your condition monitoring or your predictive maintenance. And we think about, the firefighters. Firefighters are no longer the hero in a culture of reliability. Firefighting is what we want to prevent in a culture of reliability. And so we have to change what is valued first. So I mentioned firefighters, and sometimes I refer to this as, being here in South Carolina, we have NASCAR, racing, auto racing. And in NASCAR, when they're racing, they have pit crews. So when something happens or the cars come into the pit crew wants to get out there, do what they need to do to get the car back out on the track as soon as they can and in the quickest time. So they're always trying to break that time for how long it takes to, change a tire, fill the gas, whatever they're going to do. So sometimes our maintenance crews are perceived as kind of that NASCAR pit crew where they're waiting for something to happen. So something breaks, something fails, they go out, they make that change, they make that repair, and they do it in record time. And guess what we do? We give them a pat on the back. We say, hey, y'all got that asset back up and running in record time. Maybe we give them a pizza party even if it was something major. But again, in a reliability focused culture, we want to reward, or we should be rewarding um, for when things don't happen. And that's unfortunately, that's the case a lot of times. It's only when things break or when something fails that maintenance gets recognized. But it has to be up to us to change that perception. So we need to showcase those wins, showcase when we found something that where we prevented an excessive amount of downtime from happening. So again, that should be in our reporting and documentation, is that downtime avoidance. So again, the true focus should be on what can we do to prevent that failure from happening again. So in a reliability focused culture, the people have to be engaged, they have to be informed, and they have to be trained. I was given a presentation several years ago, and we got on the topic of bearing lubrication. So we talk about that a lot here at SDT. It's become one of our core applications. And so I was talking about, lubrication best practices and how important it is. And was a gentleman sitting on the front row, and it must have struck a nerve with him because he had nothing good to say about the people responsible for lubricating equipment in his plant that he worked in. So I let him kind of talk, and I turned it around on him and I asked him, okay, I said, well, these people that you have just went off on, I said, do they understand how important their job is? What kind of procedures have they been given to do their job effectively? What kind of tools have they been given to do their jobs correctly? And what kind of training have they been given? And he was totally silent. And I think it really made him think, but that was the easy out. It was the easy for him to say that and kind of, I guess, get that out, if you will. But then it really made him think when I kind of turned it around and said, okay, our people are only going to be as effective as the training they've been given, the procedures they've been given, and the tools they've been given to work with. And again, in my conversations with people who were looking for their next opportunity, again, they want to be somewhere where they feel like they're doing meaningful work, where the companies invest in their knowledge and their skills. And there was an old saying, well, if I train these people, they're only going to leave. Well, what's worse, you train them and they leave, or you don't train them and they stay? So people are they're looking to be invested in. They want to learn more, they want to do their jobs right, but again, they're only going to be as effective as the training that we give them, the procedures that we give them, and then the tools that we give them to work with. So when you invest in your people and they feel like they're cared about, they kind of start to have an ownership of their program. They take pride in it. And to help reduce the resistance to change, there has to be clear communication and clear goals. We can't go silent on them. And you can't lead from behind the desk or behind closed doors in your office. You've got to be visible. You got to be out with the people. You got to understand their work, how they do their work. And that's the only way. Well, that's one of the ways that we can help to understand their challenges and their frustrations and help to make them to be more effective in what we have tasked them to do when they were hired. So we need to improve the way that we are currently doing our work. And we think about something as simple as job plans, work procedures. How long has it been since your PMs have been updated or evaluated? Those PMs, are they even applicable to the assets that are in the facility now? How long ago were they written? Is that equipment even still there? Has it been changed out? Has it been modified? And it's a fact that planned jobs are more efficient, they're safer. Our workers aren't having to go out like that NASCAR pit crew and make those repairs and be exposed to dangerous situations when they shouldn't have to be. And jobs can be on time. We know how long the job is going to take, so we can plan for it. So it's going to be more efficient. So in a reliability focused culture, we think about the effective use of condition monitoring tools. And I talked earlier on about repetitive failures. If we find that we're having the same failures over and over and over again, are we doing root cause analysis to figure out why are we having that same failure over and over and over again? And one of the best uses of condition monitoring data is in those root cause analysis events. Um, again, we want to make sure that we are documenting, we're reporting, we're trending, so that way we have the necessary information that when we need to do one of those root cause analysis events, the more information that we have, the better. And, one other thing that I'll add here is, we think about, bearing condition monitoring. So I talked about, bearing lubrication. Well, one of the, I guess over the years, I can remember when I started out in ultrasound, some of the hardest people to get up in front of to talk about bearing monitoring using ultrasound were let's just say the salty, level 2, level 3 vibe analysts who had been doing it for 20, 25 years. And, that's all they knew. And they were good at what they did. I mean, they were vibration experts, but they didn't want to have anything to do with ultrasound. At that time, we're going back, 20 years, but at that time, it was still a relatively new technology for bearing condition monitoring. Well, fast forward to today, and some of the best users of our equipment are people with extensive vibration backgrounds, even to the point of we see a lot of people using ultrasound as kind of the first line of defense for bearing condition monitoring. So again, it just shows how people have started to change their mindset when it comes to condition monitoring tools. We certainly have a generation of worker coming into the workforce now who are more receptive to utilizing tools, to utilizing technology to help make their jobs better, and that's a positive thing, at least in the world of what we do in condition monitoring and predictive maintenance. So again, it's been very rewarding to kind of see that change, but it's all about making use of the tools that you have. Or again, if you're finding where you're having repetitive common failures on the same assets, find a way that we can help to reduce that from happening and eliminate that root cause. So reliability has to be seen as value. And when we think about value, we think about the different types of value. There's convenience value, things that make our lives safer, better, easier. We think about process improvement as a value. Lines run as planned, downtime is minimized, assets are fully utilized, throughput is increased. And then there's, traditionally what we think of when we hear value, and that's the financial value, where we've got freed up cash, costs are reduced, profit gains, energy savings. So those are the different types of value, but we have to think about the different types of value when it comes to implementing a maintenance and reliability initiative. So, in a reliability focused culture, it's done in stages. It can't be perceived as flavor of the month. It has to have a sense of focus and purpose. And that sense of focus and purpose has to be communicated in a way where the people feel involved. And that's at each level of the organization. Each level of the organization has to understand their role in making these reliability improvements. And we want to make sure that they're involved at each stage of the implementation, and they have to understand their role and how this is going to be executed. So what happens when an organization is not aligned for reliability? Well, we've got waste and inefficiencies, internal strife and grumblings. You hear a lot of people moaning and groaning and complaining. Higher effort is required. When you go in feeling one way, but you come out feeling a different way when you leave your shift, leave your plant each day. Bad data. We've got people who don't care, and they start to pencil whip their work orders. They don't really provide the information. They're not motivated. Bad processes, and again, I've mentioned that several times, but it's one of the quickest ways and things that you can improve is just simply change your procedures, update your PMs, and that typically will lead to unrealistic and unfulfilled expectations. I talked about meaningful work, and that was another comment that was typically made in my conversations with people who are looking to make a change. They want to be somewhere where they feel like they're doing meaningful work and really driving positive change within their organization. So, what do companies with a reliability focused culture have in common? Well, leadership, commitment, and support, and a champion. And a lot of times it just takes one person to stand up and say, hey, there's a better way to do things. We've got to get out of this rut. And a lot of times we talk about it being a competitive advantage. And in this industrial environment that we're in now, if you can make a product more efficiently, more reliably, with less downtime than your competitor, then it's a competitive advantage. Companies that are aligned with a reliability focused culture, they're going to have clear goals that are aligned to the overall business objectives. So, whatever the business objectives are, make sure that when we implement a reliability initiative, make sure that we define how these business objectives will be improved because of this initiative. Continuous training programs that ensure maintenance and reliability teams are well equipped with the latest skill set and knowledge. I've kind of alluded to it, but we know, and as well, that it's a changing landscape within maintenance and reliability, with all the latest technology, skill set, sensors, IoT initiatives, machine learning, artificial intelligence. There's so many new buzzwords in our industry. It is a changing paradigm within our industry on how we execute maintenance. We want to make sure that our workforce has the skills to adapt with these new technologies and new initiatives that are coming out on almost a weekly basis, where we see some sort of new technology or software or sensor um, that is on the marketplace and available to us now. Cross-functional collaboration between maintenance, operations, and engineering. Well, that is also one of the biggest battles that we face in our plants and organizations. It's constant, maintenance. We need to get this machine down for a couple hours to do a change out or some sort of maintenance. Well, operations production says, nope, we can't afford to let this machine come down for a couple hours. Well, you're playing with fire there, because if we know that there's a potential problem, but yet we can't schedule enough downtime to make that necessary repair, then we're running the risk of having that asset functionally failed, where it can no longer run the way it was designed and installed for. But in an organization where we have a reliability focused culture, we're going to have communication and an understanding between all three of these departments: maintenance, operations, and engineering. And in a reliability focused culture, we're making data driven decisions that make use of our PDM data to help make decisions that enable proactive maintenance, reduce downtime, and optimize asset performance. Again, we're going out, we're collecting data on our equipment. What are we doing with that data? And then we have robust PDM programs that utilize the data to help us address potential problems. Now, in thinking about the people side of reliability for just a moment, we think about the people that we're hiring. And in the current marketplace, or in the current workforce, I like to say that job security is very high, but job satisfaction is very low. So the majority of the people in our workforce, they know that they have secure jobs. They know that they are needed within their organization, but are they very happy with what they're doing? Absolutely not. And again, that's why people are making changes to be in a more reliability centric culture. They're looking for better work-life balance. Pay rates for hourly workers. Are you stepping over a dollar to save a nickel? And just one quick example that I'll give you is, previously we were working for a company. They had a need for 5 maintenance mechanics. And at where I was previously, we found them some phenomenal people. I mean, excellent people that checked all their boxes. But we go to their pay rate. So at this particular plant, they were paying between $25 and $29 an hour. Well, the workers that we found that they liked, they were kind of wanting $31 an hour. So just a dollar or two an hour more than what they had in their pay rate for this position. But they were not willing to pay that extra dollar or two an hour more to get somebody in who could make an immediate impact. So you have to think about, in the current workforce, how adjusting pay rates is just where we're at. And in some cases, it's rightly justified, because just like our outdated procedures and PMs, we have some outdated pay rates in a lot of our plants and factories and facilities. And very simply put, if you're not training your workforce, then you're kind of part of the problem. And I hate to be that blunt about it, but here in the States, at least, so if you're watching internationally, it may be different, but here in the States, at least, we tend to put the blame on our education system for not teaching skilled trades. But if we've known that our school system has been lax about teaching skilled trades, then what have we been doing over the last few decades to help train up our existing workforce? So again, just something to think about. We think about, how can we invest in an apprenticeship program or start an apprenticeship program to help attract the younger generation who has mechanical aptitude. Maybe they enjoy working on their car, maybe they enjoy rebuilding electronics. How can we attract that type of person into our workforce? And I talked about new technologies and automation require new skill sets. There's going to be a huge need for electricians over the next 5 to 10 years with all of the automation, the sensors, the data collection. We think about, control logic and PLCs. There's going to be a huge need for people with electrical skill sets in the coming years. So again, just some things to think about when it comes to the people part of reliability. And, it kind of all kind of culminates with just simply outdated hiring practices. If you have a culture of reliability, that is something to showcase. If you are focused on reliability and you're reliability focused, then that is something to showcase when you're interviewing potential candidates to come in as a reliability engineer or a mechanic or anything related to maintenance and reliability. That's an important component that you should really be showcasing. And then we talked about, people who are just looking for places where they can do meaningful work. And, you have to think about, the unfilled roles that you have within your plant or factory or facility. Previously I would talk to companies who had unfilled maintenance reliability roles that had been going on for, a year, if not more. So there are people out there. Again, there are people looking for better places to be. So, how can you attract those people to your organization? And one is through just simply creating that reliability centric culture to where that person can come in and really help you to drive effective reliability change within your organization. So, in a reliability focused culture, and this, I like this graphic here. This is from Sandy Dunn at Assetivity that I came across this and I really like it. But, we think about the different um, I guess areas of maintenance where we've got, basically reactive or run to failure all the way over to strategic. And then the rewards, the motivators, and the behavior within those types of organizations in these different stages. So in a don't fix it, run to failure type environment, I talked about the overtime heroes. There are people out there who live for the overtime. I always pay attention again down here in the South, where you pull up in the parking lot and you see some really nice trucks. You see people, bringing their boats to work where they're going to hit the lake and do some fishing when they're done from work. There's some people out there who love the overtime. And overtime makes sense in certain situations, but we shouldn't have people who are living on overtime hours. That lets us know, hey, we've got some problems, whether it be, we don't have enough staff or we have highly reactivity where we have some repairs, we have some failures where it's going to require some overtime hours. So you've got a lot of breakdown and you've got people responding to things. Again, the NASCAR pit crew, the firefighters. In a more planned type culture or environment, now we're predicting, we're planning, we're scheduling, we're coordinating, and our focus is on costs. We're looking at ways to make sure that we're doing our work efficiently. The rewards, we have very little surprises. We don't have failures happening without us knowing about it. We're able to schedule things based off of that condition monitoring or predictive data that we've been collecting. So we're avoiding failures. We start to have organizational discipline. Obviously, we're paying attention to those metrics that I mentioned earlier. In a proactive environment where, we don't just fix it, we improve it. So the only way to do that is through root cause analysis, to where we're trying to eliminate defects from our equipment. And I know that there are people out there listening to this. And again, you think about assets that you're responsible for and assets that give you constant trouble and headache. Well, those assets weren't designed initially to be reliable, to be easily maintainable. So we have to think about ways that we can improve the design or modify that equipment to make it more reliable, to make it more maintainable. And it really becomes a competitive advantage. Again, if we can make a product more efficiently, more reliably than our competitor, then we're going to be in a much better position than the rest of the companies within our vertical. So we've got increased uptime. That's the motivator. We don't want that equipment to fail, and it almost becomes a game, so to speak. We start to feel proud about the work that we're doing. And the behavior is we have continuous learning. Again, I talked about training, and there are some great places out there to get help if you need help, or if you need kind of what maintenance and reliability industry as a whole recommends, or where you should be. The Society for Maintenance and Reliability Best Practice Metrics is one. Reliabilityweb.com is another one. Those are two great resources where you can find information to help you get to where you need to be. And finally, strategic. Now we have a corporate-wide standard, if you will, to where all of our plants, all of our companies within our organizations are aligned. We have a shared vision. Reliability has been integrated into the culture, just like safety, just like quality. We've got alliances. We're doing benchmarking. The rewards, hey, at this point, hey, we're best in class. The motivator is growth. We're making the most of our assets. We've got very little downtime. We've got a great workforce. Our workforce is happy. They're trained. They're doing the meaningful work. And the behavior is investing. That's where the organization starts to invest, not only within itself, but then also in the surrounding communities. Again, the people are happy. And you've got people that just have better work-life balance all together. So then we think about, CBM programs. So this kind of relates back to kind of what we do here at SDT with ultrasound technology. And, how many times have you gone into your office, so if you're a CBM technician, or if you're responsible for that within your plant or facility, how many times have you gone in and you have a box sitting there on your desk and you have no idea what it is? It just appeared. So you find out, hey, yeah, we bought some ultrasound. So here you go. That is not going to succeed very well. That's not going to take off, and that company is not going to have much success if there are a lack of clear goals and expectations as to what the initiative is and how that tool is going to be used. We find a lot of times where if there's no upper management support, it's not going to succeed. And it kind of goes back to what I call the three P's. So there's the people, the product, and the procedure. So you can have the best ultrasound, you can have the best infrared, you can have the best vibration, the best whatever, fill in the blank. But if you have no procedure in place for how that tool is going to be used, no training, and then no procedures in place that will even allow for that tool to be used, that CBM program will not succeed. So there has to be alignment with upper management all the way down to the person that's going to be responsible for that tool. And then if you think about training, you think about the overall cost of the tool. Training is the cost of the training is very minimal at that point. So go ahead, and when we're budgeting and when we're looking at implementing a new CBM tool, whether it be ultrasound, vibration, infrared, oil analysis, whatever, go ahead and factor in some training. We want to make sure that the people that are going to be responsible for this. And if this is going to be successful, there has to be some training involved. And also in your evaluation, you think about, what assistance or support do you get from your vendor? Will they support me after the purchase? What training or support will they offer once we have implemented this in our program? Again, we think about reactive problems, continued reactive problems. So I was doing a workshop a few years ago, and there were some folks there that were vibe analysts in their respective places of work. And, we got on the topic of data, and they said, yeah, we go out and we collect this data, but, we don't use it. Nobody even looks at it. And now, granted, the facility where they were in, it was very union centric. It was a union facility. So, they were kind of just checking the box that they were doing that. But, think about, they could have been doing something else more productive since nobody was even looking at the data. So we have to utilize our CBM data and making sure that if we see any of those repetitive failures over and over and over again, how can we eliminate those problems from occurring in the future? And then poor procedures. So when you think about implementing a technology, and every now and then I'll get the question asked, well, which tool is better, ultrasound or vibration, or infrared or ultrasound? And really, the question shouldn't be, which technology is better. The question should be related back to failure modes. So which tool is better for finding this problem? And whether that be ultrasound or whether that be vibration, if that's what the challenges that you're having, if that's what the repetitive failure is that's happening, then you base it really on the failure mode. You don't really ask, well, which tool is better, ultrasound or vibration, or infrared or ultrasound? We think about, asset criticality, understand the assets that we want to monitor, and then you think about the failure modes on how that equipment will fail, and then that will determine what technology we need to deploy based off of the failure mode that we're looking for and how early we want to detect that failure mode. So in thinking about, questions regarding implementation, what is the need, both current and foreseeable? The current need might be compressed air leak detection, but in the future, we may want to establish a bearing condition monitoring program. So again, you have to think about, not only how are we going to use this tool now, but what can we do with this tool in the future that will help us with asset management? Who the users will be. Again, they have to be involved. You've got to create a sense of ownership with those individuals. They have to be involved in the process and the evaluation of that tool or technology. How will this be coordinated? We probably don't want to implement a new initiative during our peak time, the time when we're going to be the busiest. Things are going to just come up. We're concerned about, making sure that we get done what we need to and making that product for that peak time. So we think about scheduling it. When is the best time? What will the budget be? I talked about training. Make sure that we include training in our budget and then that initial cost. Very important now is data. How will that data be stored and utilized? Here at SDT, even with our remote monitoring systems that we offer, we're under the belief that you, as the user, as the customer, you own the data. Now, we have places where you can send that data, but if you choose to send that data elsewhere, then again, it's pretty much open platform. You own the data. You can send it where you would like. And then, is there already a corporate initiative? Again, we talked about silos earlier. Are we communicating, and do we understand what's going on within our organization on a corporate-wide basis? Is there already initiative at another facility or in another plants? What are they doing? What successes have they had? So a successful CBM technology implementation requires training. Again, should be factored in. The cost of the training is very minimal when you look at the overall cost of the tool. support from your solution provider. If you're on the webinar today and you have our equipment, and if you feel like it's not being fully utilized, reach out to us. We would absolutely love to support you, and we can get on the Teams meeting, or we can even come out to your site. And we want to make sure that you're using that equipment to its fullest. And then continuing education. I mentioned SMRP and reliabilityweb.com. There are organizations out there that have industry specific certifications like the CMRP or CMRT or the CRL, the Certified Reliability Leader. And then there's tons of resources out there available at no cost, like application specific webinars, product tutorials, online training. That's one thing that came out of COVID is a lot of companies really put out some very nicely done online content, and a lot of it is available at no cost. So what technology are you relying on? I talked about how important it is to document any of your CBM findings to make sure they include potential downtime avoidance. We want to make sure that we document our return on investment from that CBM technology, again, such as compressed air and gas leak detection. We have a free download leak reporter app. So again, if you have our equipment, you can download that leak reporter app. So now you can start to document those compressed air leak findings. So instead of saying we found X number amount of leaks, we can say, hey, we found this much dollar amount from those wasted compressed air leaks. And we want to make sure that we're sharing this knowledge. So if you have sister companies within your organization, so if you're in a facility where you've got other plants, other facilities, make sure that you share this information across those other sites, because they can all benefit from that information. And when we think about the components of a really world-class ultrasound program, we define that as kind of people, processes, tools, and metrics. So we talked a lot about the people part of it with training, percent buy-in for the CBM program even. We talked about continuing education with tons of just online resources where your workforce can go and gain knowledge and to make them be able to do their work better. In the processes, we talked about some of those metrics early on, and really just making sure that we document and showcase our findings. The tools that we're using, you may have a tool that you're currently only using for steam trap inspections. Well, it's very likely that you can use that same tool for other applications like bearing condition monitoring or valve leakage or hydraulic applications. And then the metrics, really just kind of showcasing the dollars associated with our finds from our ultrasound program, and then the progress that we're making. So again, it's one thing to showcase that we found some leaks, but we really need to showcase the savings associated once those leaks have been repaired. So where do you go from here? Just kind of wrapping up, but you really need to be honest with yourselves. If you know that you are in a reactive environment, be honest with yourselves and say, hey, we've got some areas where we can improve. Change is not always comfortable, and you may have to step out of your comfort zone once you start to implement some of these changes. So just be aware that initially it's going to be probably not so comfortable once you start, but you have to keep kind of that long-term focus in mind, and just know that the changes that you're making now your life is going to be much better once that has been implemented and you've gotten some wins under your belt. You got to understand where your losses come from. This will certainly help you understand that maintenance will never completely own reliability. Reliability is really owned by everyone within the organization. So I talked about, getting the people involved, and the people at every level within your organization have to understand the value that a reliability improvement is going to make into each area that they're responsible for. And then you've got to measure those KPIs that reflect your organization's goals and objectives. Again, we've got to measure what's important to you. And through that, you can help to gain support from executive leadership, again, by selling reliability as value and not being a cost center or not selling it based on one technology over another. To get where you want to go, you've got to understand what does good look like, and where do you want to be, and then who will champion that change. And again, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It is something. It's a journey. I mean, it happens step by step, and it's from those marginal gains. Now, I talked about change management, and there are different models for how you can go about executing change. And these models are basically kind of a framework, if you will, on how to implement change. The one that I reference here is called Cotter's 8-step model. There's one called ADKAR. There's a PROCE model that a lot of people will use that you may see referenced when you read and do research on change management. But in Cotter's 8-step model, I'll just go through these kind of quickly, but you establish a sense of urgency. Again, when people contact us, especially when they reach out to us out of the blue and they want to learn about ultrasound technology, it's very typical that something has failed within their plant. They had a breakdown, they had something to fail, and now they're looking at solutions. So when I start to ask those people the questions, well, hey, how did you find out about SDT? They'll say, oh yeah, we had a problem, we had a failure, and they'll kind of go into the story, and sure enough, it's typically something that they could have found with ultrasound or a predictive technology. So you think about what's the sense of urgency. You create the guiding coalition. This is where we start to assemble our team from our various levels within the organization. So people, again, they start to feel involved. They understand, their involvement in this change and how it's going to affect the people that they are responsible for at each level within their organization. And then you start to develop a change. You start to develop a change vision, rather. So you begin to work out and think about, where you want to go. What does good look like? And you develop a change vision around where you eventually want to be. And then we start to communicate. We communicate that vision for buy-in. Specifically, we're trying to gain that executive leadership type support. And we start to also look for resistance. We look for areas and maybe even individuals where we know there's going to be some resistance to the change. And again, people don't like change. So it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be some resistance, but we have to know how to react to that. And we have to know how to make those people who we suspect will be resistant to the change. We've got to know how to make them more involved in adapting and implementing this initiative. So then we start to empower broad-based action. So we make it possible for people to adopt the change. We try to remove barriers. We try to remove hindrances that may not allow them to do the work now that where we're trying to change and make it more reliable. So we start to implement the change in a more broad scope. And this step number 6 is very important. We want to generate some short-term wins, and we've got to showcase exactly through this change those wins, and that is only going to help to create awareness and buy-in. Great example here is if you're in a facility where maybe you have an open kind of cafeteria or food court where everyone goes for lunch. If you have monitors and TVs up while that people can watch while they're sitting there eating their lunch, you can have different things kind of scrolling on that TV. Well, why not start to showcase some of your maintenance and reliability wins? Highlight some of the finds where maybe we found something, a defect that we avoided a significant outage or downtime incident, and really start to showcase that. Again, going back to kind of that statement of excellence, that maintenance and reliability statement of excellence. Showcase that right by the time clock or somewhere where people can see it and become aware of exactly what it is that you're doing. And then number seven, never let up. It's not a flavor of the month. This initiative, any kind of improvement in maintenance reliability needs to be ingrained into the culture. And if something is perceived as being the flavor of the month, it's not going to be ingrained into the culture. So you want to hold steady to your work, what you're doing. Um, Even if you still have people that are resistant to the change at this point, you've still got to keep at it. You've still got to, keep doing what you're doing, and try. And eventually, those people will either break the old habits or they'll be worked out of the process altogether. And again, this is where we've come full circle to where that change, that reliability improvement is ingrained into the culture and it becomes a way of life instead of a flavor of the month. So what can you do? After listening to this, I would absolutely love to, a year from now, have somebody come up and say, hey, I was the spark that created or ignited change within my organization. I talked about, hey, it a lot of times begins with just one person. So be an agent of change, take initiative and do something. It's easy just to sit back and say, oh, it's the way we've always done it. It's easy to stay in the rut. It's hard to climb out of it, but a lot of times it takes just one person um, really being the champion of it, and you'd be surprised at what that will do. Document your findings. If you're in a plant or facility where you already have a robust ultrasound program, PDM program and all, showcase your findings. Include that downtime avoidance. That's very important. People understand when you put a dollar amount to something. Um, and then that helps to showcase the value of an effective maintenance and reliability program. Speak the language of leadership and shareholders. Talk their language. It could be just something as simple as rephrasing what you normally would say to your maintenance manager or your maintenance supervisor or your reliability engineer. Think about how you can deliver that message differently to those in leadership and your shareholders. And invest in your people, train them, listen to them, be out on the floor with them, be visible, and you'd be surprised at what you can pick up and learn. And if you can make someone's work and their life better, that would go a long way. And that person is very likely to stay within your organization than to feel like they have to be somewhere else where they can drive effective change. They want to feel valued and they want to feel cared about. So one way to do that is to invest in your people and train them and make sure that they can do the work as effectively as they can be. So that's it. So really appreciate your time. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. Would welcome a connection for you if you're not currently connected with me. And hopefully this has been very thought-provoking for you. So thank you for attending.